Welcome to Information Week's Valley View. I'm David Berlin.
And I'm Fritz Nelson.
Well, it's been about 3 months since we last did a Valley View Information Week show here. We've been taking the time off to not only recalibrate the show a little bit, but also to take the summer off and
work on my tan a little bit.
Work on your pasty white skin. That's right. You did a good job there. A little bit of color, but not much. And we've got a great lineup for you today. We're going to start things off with the global CTO for one of the largest financial institutions in the world, Yobi Benjamin. After that, we've got Zach Nelson. He is the CEO of one of the poster children of cloud computing, NetSuite. And then, Fritz, we have a new component to our show. This is where we're going to bring 5 lucky startups from Silicon Valley up onto the stage, and they're going to each get to make a 3-minute elevator pitch to not only you and I, but to those of you who are watching online, and also to some judges where they're going to judge them sort of American Idol style, and we're going to see who wins the little 5 startup competition there. But first, just like with every one of our shows, we like to catch our audience up on what has exactly happened in the last 3 months since the last time we did the show. Fritz, you're usually the one who likes to tee that up, so take it away.
All right, David, thank you very much. Well, as many of you know, Salesforce.com just finished hosting its annual Dreamforce conference last week. CEO Mark Benioff led the way with a keynote that lasted 3 hours. Now, he incorporated customers, wore these swell shoes, but mostly Benioff just talked and talked and talked. Salesforce made several announcements, including the company's new Dropbox-like file sharing service, which the company is calling Chatterbox. Said Benioff to the gathered press, "I always wanted to name a product after myself."
Right.
No truth to the rumor that Microsoft's Steve Ballmer acquired Yammer for the same reason. Now, Oracle couldn't let Dreamforce get started without some little dig, so it quickly announced the acquisition of Select Minds, another purchase in the ongoing war with Salesforce and SAP in cloud-based human capital management. Human capital management is the industry's fancy term for human resources, or HR. It lets Oracle and SAP and Salesforce write checks for billions of dollars on tiny little software companies that help with, say, employee performance reviews, and then call it a strategic investment. We've heard that at next week's Oracle Open World, the company will announce something new in human capital management, the ability to fire people. That category will be called human quantitative easing. We also expect to hear that Larry Ellison is buying the Northern Hemisphere. The world of flying has changed dramatically. American Airlines just announced that it's giving its flight attendants Samsung Galaxy Note tablets. This will give flight attendants up-to-date customer information and allow them to provide better service. Now, American Airlines has also developed an Android app that lets flight attendants quickly look up insults to hurl at passengers. One special feature of the app, the ability for flight attendants to say hell no in 25 languages. In the next version of, I don't know if you've ever flown American Airlines or not, but in the next version of the app, American Airlines flight attendants will be able to tell you with a single touch of a button connecting gate information and that the airline has, once again, lost all your luggage. American airline pilots are already using iPads loaded with digital versions of flight manuals, which the airline projects will save $1.2 million in annual fuel spending due to decreased weight. And American Airlines just announced that with those savings, it will now be asking passengers and coach to take turns sitting on each other's laps. All right, I'll get off of American Airlines here. At Salesforce.com's Dreamforce conference, Virgin Airlines said that it will put Chatter, the enterprise social network technology, on all seatback screens. Never to be outdone, Oracle is planning to announce next week that you'll be able to run SQL queries from United Airlines bathrooms. GoDaddy.
That's where I do most of my queries from.
GoDaddy, the website hosting company known for its steamy ads, including one featuring race car driver Danica Patrick in the message, "Get your domain name of your dreams," was taken down recently. A hacker claiming to be a member of Anonymous took responsibility, but GoDaddy CEO Scott Wagner denied it, prompting a tweet from President Obama to tell Anonymous, "You didn't hack that." GoDaddy is working on its next Super Bowl ad, "Get the domain name of your worst nightmare," and it will feature race car driver Kyle Busch in drag. 2 weeks ago, Apple, as expected, unveiled its iPhone 5 at another luxurious venue in San Francisco, or as Samsung likes to call these events, our annual product development meeting. Apple's recent legal win hasn't prevented Samsung and Apple from attacking each other. Samsung recently took out some ads making fun of Apple's new iPhone 5. The ad was titled, "It Doesn't Take a Genius," a reference to Apple Store's Genius Bar, and it offered a spec-for-spec comparison between the iPhone 5 and Samsung's Galaxy S3. Now, in response, Apple fans created an ad titled, "Don't Settle for Cheap Plastic," in reference to the Galaxy S3's inexpensive materials. You see, the iPhone 5 is made of aluminum and glass. And then iPhone 5 owners everywhere went out and purchased plastic protective cases for their new iPhones. Ford has packed its Fusion Hybrid with some impressive technology, including a lane keeping system. It alerts drivers with a steering wheel vibration if the car drifts too close to lane markings, and it will even apply pressure on the steering wheel to help bring the car back to proper lane position. It features adaptive cruise control and a special warning light when Lindsay Lohan is in the vicinity. Finally, last week, Apple shipped iOS 6 with lots of great new features, but the most controversial one involves replacing Google Maps with Apple's own Maps app, which got some lousy reviews. Not only is the app still rather Spartan, but the information it does have is often humorous, like locating gas stations on the top of buildings and rendering buckled bridges. And in fact, it's become the butt of many jokes, but we won't do any of that here. There is some good news to come of this. The Republican National Committee is giving Apple Maps to Democratic voters to help them find nearby voting booths. And it turns out that the Map apps has actually managed to find Mitt Romney's tax returns. All right, well, that is the news. We're going to take a quick non-commercial break, and then when we come back, we will have Yobi Benjamin.
Since its debut in 2007, Internet Evolution has become the de facto source for independent opinion and analysis of next-gen Internet technology and its impact on business, society, and the future. Always on and always relevant, Internet Evolution's unique editorial voice and unstinting commitment to debunking the hype and hoopla around Internet technology makes it a must-read for its audience of information professionals.
Information Week produces over 200 in-depth reports each year, with industry-leading information, including our Impact Report, outlining the top 5 mobile security threats, our 2012 Enterprise Social Networking Research Report, and our 2012 Research Report on Business Intelligence and Information Management. Our mission is to help you make informed buying decisions. Registration is free, access to content is unlimited, and is a must-have for all IT professionals.
Welcome back to Information Week's Valley View. Fritz and I went down to MC an event in the Valley earlier this year called Under the Radar, and they invited a keynote speaker, a special one, the global CTO of one of the largest financial institutions in the world, Yobi Benjamin, to come speak. He gave a spellbinding presentation, had people roaring in laughter, and we decided to invite him here on the show. Yobi, thanks for joining us on Information Week's Valley View.
Nice to see you again, Dave.
Great to have you. So, you control the assets, the digital assets for a giant institution, global, worldwide. We won't name the name of the company because they don't like to be featured too often. But what are the biggest challenges that you're facing as a global chief technology officer right now in an industry that's undergoing a tremendous amount of change?
I think the biggest challenge for financial services industries, and not only banking, but it probably could include insurance, is scale. And what does that mean? We're used to operating enterprise scale solutions. We have enterprise scale databases, we have enterprise scale messaging systems, we have enterprise scale this, enterprise that. But when you move to the internet, that's a totally different scale. That is internet scale. Now you're thinking about, not only petabytes of data, but petabytes of data at transaction levels that must exceed 500 milliseconds. It's kind of like your search thing. You go and do that search bar. You don't expect to wait more than 500 milliseconds. It's got to be less than that. So scale, moving from an enterprise architecture to internet architectures, is probably the single biggest challenge that many financial institutions will face.
Let's dive into that for a second, because financial services companies spend about 14% of revenue on IT, probably the highest in any industry in the world, right?
Cool.
So you've got more data. You just talked about that. You've got more regulation. How can financial institutions continue to spend that kind of money in an economy such as ours with the explosion of data such as you described?
So that's an interesting question. If you look at enterprise solutions, tend to be very proprietary. Proprietary equals expensive, And while most financial institutions are trying to reduce costs, they're not actually trying to reduce efficiency. There's a difference between just cutting costs just for the sake of cutting costs versus driving for efficiency and taking out systems, for example, that have been running institutions for like 20, 30, 40, 50 years. So the movement to internet scale technologies is, I think, will actually be cheaper for financial institutions, because I can tell you, I think many people here know that, without naming some of the companies that you've you poked around earlier, that they're kind of expensive, but yet there are also some technologies that fundamentally run the internet that are running on open source.
When you say you're driving towards internet scale, I just want to make sure I understand. In a previous life, you had self-contained systems behind the firewall. There was no internet to worry about, and there's a lot of data moving back and forth to support various business processes, correct? But you're saying moving to internet scale. What is the force that's pushing you to internet scale? Is it the internet itself? Is it that fact that a lot of that process now gets pushed onto the internet? Is it the fact that you have customers and a large number of constituents who are generating additional data that's connected with the institution's business on the internet? I just want to make sure I understand.
So financial institutions, because they're heavily regulated, and again, most regulated industries, pharmaceuticals, insurance, and financial services industries, because they're very heavily regulated, they have to go and spend an inordinate amount of money protecting everything within what you just mentioned, that firewall, right? And regulators on all those types of industries say, you got to do this. The problem is the consumer base, wants you to go to the internet. And that's not just in the consumer side, but also in the business side.
Online banking,
mobile banking.
Right.
The list is a very, very long list of what you don't want to settle your insurance over, the telephone or writing a long letter. You want to go online and you just want to go say, click, 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 done. I'm done with that. So that trend continues. And changes in consumer behavior affect business-to-business behavior, because what you're experiencing your iPad and your iPhone and your Android, you expect the same level of performance, you expect the same level of experience with your business applications. You expect the same level of ease. You expect the same level of interactivity. That's what's forcing everything to the internet. It's like it's the push from below that's telling these financial institutions, insurance companies, pharmaceuticals to go and say, God, we have to go and change the way we do things. Our customers expect it, both consumer and business.
So as the CTO of this big global company, what one or two technologies are coming up time and time again that you are getting excited about in light of what you've been talking about here? Not the old school stuff, but the stuff that's coming from the consumer push from below, or things that are coming from internet startups. What excites you most?
I think the word I would use is what interests me most, because being in Silicon Valley,
it's hard to get excited.
Every day you get excited. I see roughly about 100 startups a month. Just coming over and saying like, can you look at this?
That's a lot, yeah.
So it's not. But what's interesting is basically is the competition and between the giants and though in the area of commerce and payments. You'd think that commerce was already settled a long time ago with Amazon and PayPal, but no, it's actually just begun. So you have companies like a massive search giant in Mountain View with their wallet,
Google.
Yeah.
It wasn't a contest, David. But good. Ding, ding, ding. You got that right.
You got your prize.
There's an operating system company in Redmond, There is a payments company in San Jose, and there's a great fruit company in Cupertino that are all in this space. They're all trying to find a piece of the action because global commerce and the movement of money is in the trillions of dollars. So then you have all the other startups, the Dualis of the world, that go and say, yeah, we're going to go in there too, and we're going to change it. The unwritten rule, the unwritten secret, is that despite all of this innovation from all of these companies, there sits a bank. You cannot transact anything without a banking institution. You cannot go and do what you want, make it more efficient, without a banking institution or touching the financial services industry. Because you have to deal with credit cards, you have to deal with debit cards, you have to deal with prepaid cards. And guess what? These cards are basically backed up by the underlying assets of the various financial companies that issue them. You wouldn't want, let's say, startup XYZ and say, yes, keep my money in escrow. And then we've heard this story before where either the company's mismanaged or there's malfeasance. Suddenly company goes bust and suddenly $100 million, 200, whatever the number is, just disappears. There has to be a balance sheet that protects the financial transaction.
And to your point, I recently signed up for Google Wallet, and the first thing they do is they either say, well, you can set up this one credit card that's kind of connected to Google, or you can tie it to some other existing credit card. So obviously that's where they're providing the payment infrastructure at the top level to do the transaction, but underneath, the financial industry is essentially taking over that transaction.
Well, the other thing too is like, this is a global village, like global village, global economy. A lot of the startups, they're going to go like, we'll work everywhere in the United States. You know what? It doesn't really work that way. I mean, the fact of the matter is global commerce is global commerce. You're going to transact with Europe. You're going to transact with Japan. You're going to transact with Africa. You're going to transact with Brazil. You're going to transact with all these countries. So the notion of a globally acceptable, way of conducting commerce is essential. And guess what? Only the financial institutions can actually provide that.
It's a real perspective of a global CTO, by the way. I just want to ask one question. PayPal. So we could ask the question from the consumer side, which one of these automatic or a mobile payment system should you go with? Should you go with Apple? Should you go with PayPal? Should you go with Amazon? Should you go with Microsoft or Google? But really the question is, if you're a business, where do you place your bets? Because, not every business takes all of those different forms of payment. And now I think I'm walking in now. Home Depot, I think, takes PayPal. I think I've seen that recently.
Yeah, that's true. So let's look at the history of credit cards very quickly, right? In 1959, which I believe was around the late 50s, early 60s, when Bank AmeriCard first became the precursor of Visa, right? It used to be that stores would only take Bank AmeriCard. Then it only became Visa only. Then it became Visa MasterCard. Then it became Visa MasterCard American Express. Then it became Visa MasterCard Discover, and et cetera, et cetera. You go to Japan, you get JCB, and so on and so forth. You used not to take debit cards. You would only take credit cards. The fact of the matter is, as long as the facility, the mechanism will provide you revenue and cash flow, the merchant is likely to take it. At some point, the fees associated will come into play. Mm-hmm. But as long as it represents a critical mass of cash flow coming into a merchant, they'll take it. And, they come hand in hand. Merchant acceptance goes hand in hand with consumer adoption. If no merchant takes it, the consumers don't want it. And if no consumers use it, merchants don't want
Chicken and egg problem.
It's a chicken and egg problem.
This is a market in upheaval, is what you're describing. But we are seeing micro lending. We are seeing, and the banks stay where they are and the banks take their cut of it, but every other piece of the ecosystem is being cut out. So what makes this, you said it was interesting. What about all of these trends is interesting from where you sit?
From where I sit, I think the globalization aspect of this makes it very interesting. 80% of the world still really doesn't have real access to core financial services. And to be able to bring financial services to that 80% of the world, or 70, whatever the number is a really exciting thing. Now that excites me to see, a goat farmer in, pick a country in the Sudan, having a mobile phone, having the ability to transact with the next village, move money from one person to another. That greatly expands that goat herder in Sudan, northern Sudan, wherever, their ability to conduct commerce. It used to be they could do it person to person, door to door. Now they can do it to the next village. Now they can do it to the next province. They can even do it internationally. Those are the things that excite me. Is that a short-term thing? I think it's shorter than what people think, because the adoption of mobile phones has been dramatic in this 80% part of the world. And I believe that financial services will come very, very close in the heels of the mobile phone industry.
Well, Yobi, we're out of time. I think we could sit here and talk to you for another hour if we had to, because you have so many fascinating things to say. We give all of our guests on the show Information Week Valley View mug.
Excellent.
Something to take home, and so you can remember us. So hopefully you won't forget us.
No.
It's always great to have you. Will you come back?
Of course.
Okay.
See you, David.
Thank you very much. Great
And,
to have you.
and thanks for mentioning goat herders, because that's what he wants to do.
I'm looking forward to doing some goat herding at some point. Stay put for
Thank
1
you.
second. Okay, well, a couple weeks ago, the Vice President of Research for Information Week, Art Whitman, got a chance to catch up with Zach Nelson. He is the CEO of one of the poster children of the cloud computing industry, NetSuite.
Zach Nelson, NetSuite CEO, came to run the company 10 years ago after a stint at McAfee and before that at Oracle. He has led the company on a fairly steady course of success. We caught up with Nelson on the eve of Oracle World, where he is one of the keynote speakers and also, coincidentally, in a prelude to Workday's looming IPO. Nelson discussed the company's complicated relationship with Oracle, smacked down a couple of competitors, talked about the trend towards social, and honed in on what NetSuite actually provides and some of the company's distinct advantages.
Well, yes, I am keynoting Open World, and the topic there is a variety of things. NetSuite was really started by the guy who started Oracle. So Larry Ellison's a founder, majority shareholder here. Evan Goldberg, our CTO, was also co-founder. So there's a lot. I'm an ex-Oracle person, so there's an enormous amount of Oracle DNA right from the top throughout the organization. We have partnership with Oracle on a bunch of fronts. Our entire application is built on the Oracle stack, Oracle database, Oracle server, Oracle hardware. Exadata, Exalogic, two products we've purchased to scale the data center. And we have many, many joint customers. And so at Open World, we're going to talk more specifically about the Oracle NetSuite opportunity in enabling customers to be successful with Oracle at corporate and standardizing with NetSuite in their second tier. So we're very excited about the two-tier opportunity with Oracle.
You have kind of a two-pronged strategy. One is the standard suite and one is the One World suite. Can you talk a little bit about how that business differentiates and which is driving?
Yeah, the interesting thing is we have many different flavors of NetSuite. We have a version of NetSuite designed for software companies. We have a version of NetSuite designed for distributors, for manufacturers. But at the end of the day, it's still all one single code base. We just configure it differently depending on the type of industry you're in. So that's a very powerful feature of the product in terms of addressing the needs of different types of businesses. In terms of the markets that we go after, when we started the company and we built the first versions of NetSuite, we could only serve the needs of smaller, mid-sized businesses. Over time, we've been at this for 13 years now. We've added features and functions that allow us to scale to the world's largest companies. And that's where this product, NetSuite One World, comes in. That effectively allows you to run a multinational business in a single application. And so One World is really about our strategy to move up market, in the U.S., multinationals tend to be very large organizations, and we think One World's the best solution in the world to run a multinational. It's better than SAP. It's better than Oracle. It's better than anything out there today for a whole bunch of reasons. And then the standard NetSuite product really addresses the needs of single entity businesses in a multitude of industries.
So in terms of what's driving new customers towards you, the suite can be purchased obviously as components or a large set of components. Are there particular ones that are driving the business right now?
Absolutely. So the NetSuite can, even though it is a single application designed to run a business, companies often use pieces of that application. They may have other applications for a variety of reasons. So there are two key drivers to our business. One is obviously 100% of our customers use our back office functionality, our ERP functionality. Of that 100% that use ERP, 70% use some other aspect of the suite. They could use our e-commerce capabilities. They could use our Salesforce automation capabilities. They could use our support capabilities. So people come to us for the suite, but it's an ERP-driven suite. And the takeaway from that is that at the end of the day, ERP is where the data resides that you run your business on. You run your business on orders, invoices, shipments, payments, and there's one system that's in. It's called the ERP system. You want all the other systems to have access to that data, and that's really the idea behind the suite. Cloud computing is actually a much larger business trend, and what I've seen over the last few years is that companies not in the technology business have realized they are cloud companies. They have to figure out how to use the cloud to deliver their services, and it's not just virtual services, it's physical product. And I went to the Philippines when I began to talk about this, every company being a cloud company, tried to think of the most absurd examples of what that means. I said, if you're a cattle rancher, you're a cloud company. If you're a florist, you're a cloud company. And in Manila, two hands went up. One was a florist, and one was the sole producer of Kobe beef in Manila. And both of them said, exactly, that's why we're using NetSuite, is because we need to use the cloud to run our businesses. The Kobe beef producer wanted to track his cattle in the field, wanted to see which ones are sick, wanted to see RFID them to see where they were, bring them in, and similar sorts of business processes for the florist.
So for a Kobe beef producer, you would have to have some sort of application that tracks when cows are late for their spa appointments, right?
Well, yeah, for their beer and their massage, absolutely. And that subtle example is one more very important feature of the product that is used by every company, and that is the ability to customize NetSuite. You know, if you look at NetSuite in various markets, we have 80-90% of the functionality every company needs to run their business. However, it's that last 10% that really makes the difference in a business. So when does the cow get his stout beer and his rice meal, and when does he get massaged? That's not built into our system.
You hadn't thought of that one?
No, we haven't thought of that. And there's a million of those, right? A million of those business applications. So with our Suite Cloud platform, they can customize the system very easily to address those edge cases that are very important in their business. And in my mind, the customization capabilities of NetSuite ultimately are what enable NetSuite to beat the SAPs and Microsofts of the world, because those applications are completely non-customizable. And if you customize them once and never touch them again. In the case of NetSuite, you can customize this application until the cows come home in this example. You know, in many of those large companies, they've spent, $100 million on SAP, right? And the corporate infrastructure runs pretty well on that. But what happens beneath that in the subsidiaries, it's very hard to jam into a $100 million subsidiary an instance of SAP designed for a $100 billion company. Some people try it, most people don't. So what happens in those subsidiaries is they create a Tower of Babel by putting a variety of different systems in each of those countries. So in the UK, they might put Sage. Australia, they might put MYOB. In Japan, they might put Yayoi, all these low-end accounting products. Then it's almost impossible to consolidate those results on a meaningful basis. What you're seeing happen at the Qualcomms, at the Procter & Gamble's, at the Land O'Lakes is they're saying, let's begin to put in that second tier a standard platform. And that standard platform is quickly becoming NetSuite because they can run all of those subsidiaries on a single product. They can give the local control of those subsidiaries to the country managers, but they can look across them in a common view because it's still running in a single system.
A lot of folks have said that NetSuite was a little late to the adding social capabilities to its platform. And I think your answer at the time was, we're making sure that we're supporting that value-added tax the next day after it was implemented. Is that the right strategy, and is the partnership with Yammer still the right way to go?
Yeah, our concept, I don't believe we were late to social. I think our idea with social was never to own the end user display of data, right? It was to plug into end user social displays. And Yammer is one of those. So when you look at what happens in a NetSuite account, a lot of social activity happens in a NetSuite account. A sales rep places an order. A customer files a trouble ticket. A contact is created. All of these, it is the social hub for our customers who use the suite. It's their business backbone. And so what we decided to do was say, let's stream data out of NetSuite and get it to the right person at the right time through whatever device they're using. Some guys use email. Send them an email alert when an order is created or one of their customers is on the website, crawling the website. Or send them a Yammer message. It could just as easily be send them a Chatter message. It could just as easily be send them a Jive message.
So meanwhile, some of your competition has been talking about going down market. SAP pretty famously said named you, called you out, said they were going to come after your market. How do you view that?
Well, SAP has definitely done a lot of talk. They have not had very much success. And frankly, I don't believe no technology ever moves down market. Technology always moves from the bottom up, not from the top down. And there are a whole bunch of reasons for that. Some of them are technical reasons. But as importantly are business model reasons. Every time I move up market, my margins expand. I get more profitable. When companies move from high-end enterprise down, their margins shrink. No business really likes to shrink its margins, and nobody does it voluntarily.
So who worries you?
The interesting thing is this was a complex application to build, and still nobody's built an application design to run a business. So our business strategy is they always build applications to run departments, and then they turn to IT and they say, tie all this stuff together, which never works, right? So our business strategy is very differentiated. We've also been at it for 13 years. And when you look at an ERP-driven sale, it is largely a functionality sale. If you don't have demand-based inventory replenishment and the customer needs it, they're not going to buy your product. Doesn't matter if the bits come from Mars or if they come on a disk or they come from NetSuite. So it's a functionally driven sale, and it takes time to build that functionality. And we've been at this for 13 years. So anybody who's going to compete with us, they have lots of problems. First of all, they have to build a complex application and make it actually work properly. Then they have to deliver the bits over the internet instead of shipping a disk. Those are two very hard problems to solve. And they have to catch up with 13 years of investment in a product. And so therein lies the problem. It took us 13 years to build NetSuite. How long will it take anybody else to build NetSuite? 13 years. And guess what? In that 13-year period, we'll be 26 years into it. So this is the nature of disruptive technology. If you make the right bet and stay the course for a long time, it's very hard for anybody to catch up with you.
And that was Zach Nelson. He's the CEO of NetSuite. It was great to have him on the show. And if you want to see the entire interview, that was just a short part of it, you can go online to twb.io/ZachOnVV. That's capital Z, capital O, capital VV. That stands for Zach on Valley View. twb.io, by the way, is our custom shortened domain name, twb.io/ZachOnVV. And we've got Art Whitman here in the studio with us to talk a little bit more about what Zach had to say. And I think my first question for you, Art, is he said that in addition to kind of echoing what Yobi just said, Yobi was talking a little bit about goat milk farmers and stuff like that. He's talking about people who, farmers, and so there's a lot of messaging there about enabling the small guy to get things done in a commerce fashion. But he talked about how no technology really goes down market that well, particularly in the context of how SAP is attempting to come down market and come after his share. But traditionally, especially with multi-tenant systems, that is the way to go down market. If you look at a lot of big companies out there today, let's say Salesforce or take Facebook, for example, they've taken very big sort of enterprise technology, turned it into a multi-tenant system, and have basically come down market as low as to the consumer. Do you buy it?
Well, I think the challenge that they're up against is that SAP is up against is that you don't do it typically with the same software base as that you're serving your big customer, right? Mm-hmm. When you come down market, it's almost always a separate effort. And I think in that sense, Zach is right. So you've seen SAP make a lot of purchases to kind of build out what's going to be that cloud infrastructure. It's not like you make a mini version of SAP and that's what you're going to
So
sell.
you're traditionally saying that traditionally they've served their customers through a non-multi-tenant sort of approach where you don't get scale, you don't get efficiencies. It costs more to serve lots of customers. The more customers you serve, the more cost there is. Are you saying that they have to, through acquisitions and stuff, get themselves more to the sort of infrastructure that a real cloud provider has?
I'm saying that if you shrunk down SAP, nobody would want it because it is too complicated, right?
Okay.
It's too hard to manage. And you can see this in other markets. Cisco had to go buy Linksys in order to go down market to the consumer to have networking service there. Mm-hmm. There's lots and lots of other examples. So there's some truth to what he's saying. I think the challenge is that when you look at NetSuite and who their customer is almost always somebody who, for one reason or another, couldn't have an ERP system. Too expensive, too complicated, couldn't justify it. So when he tries to go up market, the second you get into customers who really could say, "Oh, I could go buy an SAP system, or I go to Microsoft and get sort of the in-between version," that's a very, very hard sell. You look at his competitors in the cloud space. Salesforce immediately solved a pain point for people, and their valuation is 3 or 4 or 5 times what NetSuite's is. Where NetSuite is like, you're going to have to, before we're going to give you cake, you're going to have to eat your Brussels sprouts, which is the ERP system, right? He said 100% of their customers have their ERP system. So you kind of have a tortoise and hare sort of phenomenon, right? Salesforce takes off, is immediately solving a PowerPoint. NetSuite has a good value proposition which says, we're going to help you run your business, but you got to tackle the whole problem. And as you do tackle that problem, it's going to take you a while, but you'll see the benefits of doing it all at once. And you can see the people with pain points from NetSuite or from Salesforce.com, where exactly what he said is true. Integrating it back into your other systems is a big problem.
Is that Brussels sprouts problem kind of NetSuite's big challenge? I mean, they've done well. Their market value is up, their stock price is up, they've grown revenue every year since 2007, and yet Salesforce.com, which doesn't make any profit, and Workday, which is going public, right, they're the ones getting all the attention.
Yeah, I once said, I don't remember who the startup guy was. He said, the second we want to make a profit, we will. And we're like, okay. And so you kind of, I'm sure that's what Mark Benioff would say, right? As soon as we feel like, we're at a size where we can, turn this into a profit engine, we'll flip that switch and we'll do it. I don't know if that's true. I really do think this is a tortoise and hare race. The problem is we don't know how far into the race they really are, right? The tortoise eventually wins in the story. NetSuite could win, but only if we're at, a third of the way into the race. And I just don't know how far in we are.
So we've talked about goats, we've talked about cows, we've talked about tortoises. All we need is like a Chick-fil-A reference, and we've covered all the games possible.
Yeah, cows getting spa treatments. I like that. That's
If I'm going to come back as a cow, I want to come back as a Kobe beef cow.
There you go. Okay. Well, all right. Thanks very much for joining us on the show. It was a great interview with Zach. Appreciate it. Okay. When we come back, we're going to start the elevator pitch segment of our show. That's where we're going to have 5 hot startups from Silicon Valley come up and give 3-minute pitches to us, American Idol style.
When Apple won't let you run Flash on your iPhone, you get Android. When you get Android, you get malware. When you get malware, your mother-in-law gets emails inviting her to donate money. When your mother-in-law donates money, she goes broke. When she goes broke, she comes to live with you. Don't live with your mother-in-law. Go with Windows Phone 8.
Once, he had to retrieve a lost file from the cloud. A real cloud. His organ donor card also lists his keyboard. He's a Mac, not a PC. But he's also a PC. So don't get any ideas. His sideburns are wireless routers.
I don't always answer my phone, but when I do, I prefer Android.
He is the most interesting IT guy in the world.
Stay connected, my friend. When Computer World gets the story wrong, you end up buying in 1978 Spiri Univac. When you buy a Spiri Univac, you become the laughingstock of your CIO colleagues. When you become a laughingstock, you drink too much. When you drink too much, you end up in a one-room Harlem apartment with two hookers named Destiny and Bob. Don't end up in bed with hookers named Destiny and Bob. Read Information Week.
When he jailbroke his iPhone, Apple approved. His configuration files have won Pulitzer Prizes. He just stares at a trouble ticket, and the problem goes away. Sometimes he sends emails without addresses, and they still arrive at their destination. He is the most interesting IT guy in the world.
Stay connected, my friend.
Stay connected indeed. Welcome back to Information Week's Valley View. As I said earlier in the show, we spent the summer recalibrating Valley View to include a new component, and that is our elevator pitch, which is the way that different startups will be able to come onto the show and make a pitch to not only you, the members of our online audience, but to me and Fritz, and also to our judges that we have here in the studio with us today, who will be scoring those presentations. Each of those startups will get 3 minutes to make their best elevator pitch, and then our judges will give them their scores. So we want to get started with this component of the show. Fritz, who's our first guest?
Our first guest is Authority, and we have the president and co-founder, Domingo Guerra. Hi, Domingo. And I'm going to give you this mic, and your 3 minutes starts now.
Okay, so Authority is the authority in app security. We've seen the enterprise embrace the mobile world and its advances in productivity and connectivity, and people want a mobile workforce. But with BYOD, or bring your own device, also comes bring your own apps. So what are these apps doing? There's a lot of risks involved in mobile apps. We've seen very difficult solutions trying to manage these things, but IT struggles with blacklist when there's over 1 million apps out there, if you count different operating systems. It's very fragmented in terms of developers. Of the top 50 iOS apps, 40 come from different unique developers. It's no longer IT purchasing software from known good vendors. There's also an explosion in mobile malware. And even beyond malware, up to 80% of the top iOS and Android apps can receive and send corporate data. So the worlds of the consumer and the enterprise have blended in mobile. There's some solutions like mobile device management, mobile app management that can do enforcement or management. So IT says, block that app, and they'll block it. But how does IT build mobile policy if they don't know what apps do? Enter Authority. At Authority, we've built a cloud-based system which scans iOS and Android apps for risks. We look at everything from malware to corporate data leakage and other types of risks that the enterprise doesn't like. And we customize these reports particular to the enterprise. We know security is not a one-size-fits-all. We see the same app might be safe for someone like Cisco, but not safe for someone like Morgan Stanley. So we give the IT departments the ability to customize those scores and produce those automatic reports. Thank you. So what does Authority do? Authority scans those apps and then partners with top vendors in the industry in the mobile space. That means you can have app reputation when you create apps and develop apps. We work with enterprise app developers or third-party app developers like Accelerator. If you want to distribute the apps, we work with enterprise app stores like Aperion and Haptique. If you want to use the apps, we work with MDM providers like Boxstone, Fixmo, or IronKey. And if you want to search for apps, we can work with search providers like Quixie. We're always adding new partners. We're solution agnostic, and we connect over REST API. So it's a great way for IT departments to have intelligence on what apps do, but also be able to implement that in the systems they already use today. They don't have to learn a new user interface. They don't have to learn a new tool. Finally, why we say you should get Authority. You get everything that we spoke about, which is mobile app risk management. You get an award-winning team and award-winning technology. When we launched the product, we were named the most innovative company of RSA Conference 2012. And you get it at consumerization prices. So how much does an app cost? It's 99 cents. You can get Authority for only $1.50 per user per month. And that's a lot cheaper than a lot of the other solutions out there that try to charge per app scanned, especially when you have 1 million apps out there. Wow.
Right there in 3 minutes.
Domingo was not even looking at a clock. That was quite well timed. Well, I want to turn to our judges here, and first let's introduce them. We'll start closest to me. You already saw Art Whitman, Vice President of Information Research, talking about his interview with Zach Nelson. We have Boonsy Dickinson, who reports for Byte.com, and then Charlie Babcock, who reports for InformationWeek.com. And so, Boonsy, I'm going to throw it to you because Byte does report a lot on the mobile device management marketplace and a lot of the BYOD, bring your own device. That's a big theme on Byte. So what'd you think?
I like it. I've heard great things about your company, and I think you nailed the pitch.
Thank you.
Presented the problem of apps.
And is there a score? Do we have a score? A 9. All right. Okay. And I'm going to go over here to you, Art, because you guys, Information Week Research, we put out a bunch of reports that compare technologies like this to each other. You actually do have a report in circulation right now that's about mobile device management. So you presided over the development of that report. What do you think?
I think it's a good approach to a problem that maybe enterprise shouldn't be trying to solve, which is I would rather see applications that wall off what users do as private people and what they do as employees and divide those two spaces. So I think that this is a good solution for some people, but there may be better ways to go to actually approach the problem. And so for that, Russian Judge gives you a 7.
Russian Judge gives you a 7. Okay, Charlie.
I don't think we can do enough in this space. I think you've got a good approach. What I like is not only the discovery and scanning that you do from the cloud, but the ability to, I believe, check on behaviors and keep some bad behavior out of somebody's enterprise. So I'm going to give you a 9 for good effort and more to come, we hope.
Oh, you had us faked out for a minute. I thought you were going to turn us an 8, and then all of a sudden you squeezed out a 9.
Maybe I influenced him.
You may have influenced him. Okay, well, great. Thanks, judges. And Domingo, thank you very much for joining us here on stage. Good luck.
Thank you.
Okay. Fritz, who's up next?
Okay, our next guest is Clicker, and joining us is the CEO of Clicker, Gaurav Manglik. Gaurav, thank you for joining us, and your 3 minutes will begin right now.
Thank you. So Clicker is a cloud application management platform that makes it easy and efficient to move, manage, and secure applications of cloud infrastructures. So we've all heard about cloud. There's been so much buzz, but where are we at today? Apart from SaaS and a small number of new greenfield applications directly written for clouds, the large masses of enterprise business apps have not been yet cloud enabled, and businesses continue to get cloud envy. So why has that been so hard? Well, applications, newly developed or existing applications, are fundamentally different in the way they're designed from the way clouds provide infrastructure, which means that applications have to be re-architected, modified, virtualized, optimized, and secured for a particular cloud infrastructure. That in turn results in cloud lock. Now, Clicker fundamentally changes all of that. With Clicker's product, which we call Cloud Center, applications can be lifted and shifted, onboarded onto Clicker's cloud without the need to modify them, without the need to virtualize them, after which those applications can be run on any cloud, private, public, or a hybrid combination of those cloud infrastructures. So Clicker Cloud Center is composed of 2 main pieces: Cloud Center Manager, which is a single pane of glass for managing all your applications on all your clouds, which talks with our Cloud Center Orchestrator technology. That's really our secret sauce, if you will, which allows us to take different application types, different application architectures, and run them on different clouds without the need to modify each other. That's really where our breakthrough is. So out of the box, we support all of the top public and private cloud technologies. Not only do we take all the risk away in terms of cloud migration in enabling applications on clouds, but with our multi-cloud support, end users get immediate insight into how different applications are going to perform in terms of availability, price, performance, SLAs on different cloud infrastructures, giving immediate insight into how clouds are going to perform. So with Clicker, finally, enterprises get the ability to take the true benefit of what cloud computing has to offer in terms of elasticity, agility, and scalability. Clicker's pricing model is designed to mimic that of the cloud, taking away all barriers of entry. We do not charge enterprises anything for the migration. Our charging is based on our management for your applications on the cloud, just like how clouds charge on a pay-per-use basis. So we invite you to come to clicker.com and try us out.
Great.
And that's Clicker, C-L-I-Q-R, right?
That's right, C-L-I-Q-R.
Okay, so let's turn to our judges here. What did you think of Garev's presentation? Okay, let's go to Charlie first. Sorry, Charlie's got a 10 showing, but I'm not sure the way he sneaks out the score.
He's our cloud guy,
Yeah,
too.
he's our cloud guy, that's right.
Gareth, that is very promising. It sounds good. The thing that I'm unsure of is this moving legacy applications into the cloud is such a big problem. What I heard was you can translate or you can identify APIs of an application and then in some fashion neutralize them, translate them to various clouds. My concern here is that not all legacy applications function in the modern mode, and it's still unclear to me how we get there through your approach. So I'm going to give this a 7.
A 7. Until you hear about when they can, how it is they go about making this this conversion. I'm gonna foil you. You look like you're getting ready, Boonsy, to kind of give a score, and I'm gonna go to Art instead, just to throw you a curveball here. Art, you heard lift and shift, which is the heavy lifting part of what Gaurav was talking about. You know, how do you get applications off of their legacy mode into a more modern cloud mode that Charlie was talking about? What do you think?
I'm less worried about the legacy apps than Charlie is, but I think the problem that you're trying to solve is probably one of the first things that organizations that are serious about the cloud should be trying to solve, which is to become agnostic about the various stacks that are underneath all the applications you might have. The only thing that prevents me from giving you a 10 is that I think in a lot of organizations, they still look at the majority of their applications residing in the data center with some sort of overflow out to the cloud. So for them, I think they may think logically, I want this on my data center because that's where most of my work is going on. So yeah, I'll give you a 9.
Another 9.
You're heading down the right track.
Okay, Boonsy.
Well, I think they're generous. I'll give you a 3.
Ooh, tough customer. Okay. Why so low?
Well, I understand the need for his product, but I just think that he needs to make a better case for it.
Better case for it.
Like, explain it more.
Mm-hmm.
He could have used the 40 seconds extra.
You could have used the 40 seconds. 3 minutes is a tough time to get it all in there, right? To convince people that you do, because that is a big sell. Hey, we take this application that you haven't been able to cloud enable, and we just through some magic box cloud enable it. And there's a little bit of magic secret sauce there, I imagine, but it needs to be explained, better explained. And I think that was your point, Charlie, as well, right? Yeah. Not only that, how do you maybe, instead of keeping up with the old applications, just figure out a way to migrate to something that's already built for the cloud, that's already SaaS.
It just didn't seem that innovative to me.
Okay. Well, Gaurav, thank you very much for joining us here on Information Week's Valley View. Good luck. Okay. Who's next?
Our next guest is CrowdStrike, and we have the CEO, George Kurtz. George, I'm going to give you the mic here, and as we tee up your presentation, a long history in this space. You founded Foundstone, where you are also the CTO of McAfee. So McAfee, you've heard of them?
Small company?
Yeah, small company.
Now
so
Intel.
this is the new stuff. So you have 3 minutes to tell us about CrowdStrike.
Fantastic. Well, CrowdStrike is a big data technology company that's focused on identifying and preventing the damage from targeted attacks. Some might call those APTs. We like to call them targeted attacks. I like to say that we don't have a mission statement. We're on a mission. And we're on a mission to fundamentally change the way people think about security. And the way that we do that is by hiring the very best people in the industry. I've literally handpicked the best technologists as well as ex-law enforcement personnel. For example, Sean Henry was the number 2 person in all the FBI who was involved in every investigation cyber related over the last 5 years. So my time at McAfee taught me a few things. One is that defense in depth is challenged. and that most organizations who have a firewall, who have antivirus, who have intrusion prevention, they're still getting attacked, and they're losing intellectual property by the billions of dollars. I'm sure you've seen this on the news on a daily basis. And unfortunately, most organizations think they have a malware problem. The reality is they have an adversary problem. CIOs cannot fundamentally answer a simple question: who is on my network? It's not about the malware, it's about the adversary, who's behind the keyboard. So from a CrowdStrike perspective, there's 3 areas of focus for us. First is intelligence. We provide intel as a service. We're basically replicating what's been done in the government, providing classified level intelligence in an unclassified world. We sell that as a subscription, and it's very, very impactful for organizations who want to understand who their adversary is and what steps they can take to identify them and mitigate their damage. The second area is very high-end services, and those services are focused on response and being able to identify, again, who's on your network, respond to them, get them off your network, protect your intellectual property, and then something that we're really pioneering, which is Strike, which is offensive security. Now, it's not breaking back in the systems, but it's using deception, denial, and disruption to cause more pain to the adversary to increase their cost. The third area is the technology, which is the crown jewel of the company. This is a big data platform. It's predictive analytics and being able to identify and share these TTPs, tactics, techniques, and procedures between customers, and be able to identify the adversaries and link who the adversary is to the tools they actually are using to what their intent is. So instead of hearing you got hit by downloader XYZ, we can tell you it's this Chinese group, this particular campaign, and they're targeting your negotiation documents. So at the end of the day, we've got a world-class team that we've assembled. These are folks who have done it at scale in small organizations and run some of the largest software security companies in the world. We've got a technology platform that we think is going to change the way people think about security, and we've got very high-end services and intelligence subscription capabilities that I think will rival governments in what we can deliver to the commercial world. So with that, that's CrowdStrike.
All right.
With 10 seconds to go. Thanks, George.
Thank you.
Well
I
done.
like that deception and disruption, and it's very spooky.
Well, we've got this is very, very much a changing, moving target, the whole security scenario for enterprises, and I think we need something a little more aggressive like that. But I'm not going to be the judge. I'm going to turn it over to our in-house judges here, and I'll go to Boonsy this time first.
Great.
She's chomping at the bit.
I love that pitch, so I'm going to give you a 10.
Whoa, 10. 10
I think
points
it's
from
very
Boonsy.
disruptive what you're doing.
Art?
Okay, I'm not going to give you 10. So first, a couple of questions just very quickly. What's the pricing model?
We haven't launched the product yet.
Okay.
Not launched yet.
All right.
The other components are launched.
Sorry.
Yep. Okay. So it's what you've got here is a lot of promise. I've never heard a single startup come to me and say, we hire the shittiest people that I can think of, and that's how we're going to build a company. Everybody says we're going to hire the greatest people. Everybody says we're going to have the best technology. And so at this point, I get it's hard for you to show, but I can't see an ROI based on me buying a chunk of your really, really smart people and really, really smart technology versus other ways that I could possibly combat some of these same problems. So partially because you're such an early phase startup, it's hard to see how this is actually going to work in a way that pays off for me as a customer. So 6.
Okay.
All right. Charlie?
Well, I liked what I heard. I think there must be some investment behind the company for you to have gotten this far. I am worried that we don't have any proof of concept. We
already have customers on
subscription we have customers.
And technology side.
The government still gets broken into, but you do have good government information. And from what I hear, that's not enough, but it's a great start. I like the commitment and I like the approach.
Okay.
All right.
9.
Great. Thank you.
Well done. George, thanks very much.
Thanks for having me.
Okay.
Great. Okay, our next guest is Fusion.io, and joining us from Fusion is Gary Orenstein. He's the Senior Vice President of Product. How are you doing?
Great. Thanks for having me. We're really happy to be here.
Okay, so we're going to tee this up here. Fusion.io, you've got 3 minutes.
Fusion.io delivers the world's data faster with a software approach to application acceleration. Now, what does that mean? We live in a world where time is of the essence, and nobody likes to wait. Whether it's the e-commerce that we conduct online, the content that we consume over the internet, or simply sharing photos with friends, we all want everything to go faster. And as we know, that data needs to reside somewhere in the cloud, in a data center, in servers. And so at the core of Fusion IO is our IO memory platform, which manifests itself in our IO Drive products. The IO Drive products are flash memory-based products that go inside data center servers to deliver data more quickly than you could with traditional spinning disks. And so customers are able to deliver more data quickly, as well as shrink the footprint of that data center infrastructure, which is a very big deal in today's world. Now, we also like to make the flash memory solutions for these data center operators easy to consume. And we do that with a variety of software packages. IOSphere to help them manage all of the flash memory in their servers, caching solutions like IO Turbine that help them integrate their existing storage systems while putting flash memory in the server to make those applications run faster. Direct Cache can also be used for caching. We also have a new product called the Ion Data Accelerator, which takes an industry standard server full of Fusion's IO memory and turns that into a shared storage system that can be used across many servers. And so the benefit of all of this software is to allow data center architects and operators to utilize flash memory in a bunch of different ways that's easy for them to deploy. Now let's walk through some examples with customers. What does this really mean from a customer perspective? Well, our customers want to deliver data more quickly to their customers and do it in a way that's efficient as well as performant. So we have a number of examples. I'll give you a few. Dwango, for example, went from 200 servers down to 50, delivering more data more quickly while shrinking their footprint, shrinking their power, shrinking their data center requirements. Mixi, a very large social network, had a 10-to-1 consolidation. By placing flash memory in those servers and not relying on slower mechanical spinning disks, they're delivering more data more quickly with a smaller footprint. So across the board, whether we see customers doing databases, virtualization, big data applications, the theme is consistent. Break away from the old model of configuring disks for performance, put flash memory inside your servers, deliver more data more quickly to your customer base, and everybody's happy with that kind of solution.
All right. Well, Gary, thanks very much. Let's turn to our judges. Charlie, I'm going to go to you first. Fusion IO, basically SSD for the data center. That's sort of the three-word pitch, if I could rephrase it for you. What do you think?
I think it's another flash memory solution that's going to have a lot of weight in the enterprise. It does do exactly, I think, as advertised, what we're talking about here. I like it, but I like flash memory for database caching and all the other purposes also. So I'm going to give this 7 as a good practical solution.
Okay. Boonsy?
All right. I like what you're doing. I like the fact that you said that it reduces the amount of servers that companies need. As we know, I think the New York Times just came out with a story on how the environmental impact of these servers have, and now that big data is very sexy. It's going to be a huge problem in the future. Absolutely. So I'll give you an 8.
Thank you.
8. All right.
I think the biggest challenge you have, and I know a little bit about your product, I think the biggest challenge you have is differentiating yourself from 1,000 other people who are saying, hey, we got an SSD product that will put flash memory into some place in the chain of systems. You do have some of these players are really big, and you've made some really huge savings for them, and there's a little bit of work they have to do to make that happen, and that's a very hard thing to explain in 3 minutes. But I think your product is really unique. I think your presentation was good for 3 minutes. Really hard to get at that unique distinction in that amount of time. So for that reason, if I haven't messed up my numbers, I'm giving an 8.
Okay.
Thanks very much.
Score, Art. Yep. Okay, Gary, thanks very much for joining us here on Valley View.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Yep. Great to have you. Last guest.
All right, our last guest is Contiki, and joining us is the CEO, Dan Vetris. So we're going to go from flash memory in the data center, cloud, security, to enterprise video. Dan, your 3 minutes begins now.
Thanks, Fritz. Thanks, David. I'm the only thing standing between you and lunch now, right? At least it's not the happy hour. So what does Contiki do? We're actually more than video, and I'm going to touch on that a little later in the presentation. We're enterprise content delivery, not that the industry needs another acronym, but ECDN. So how do we differ from a CDN, a traditional Akamai or InterNAP or Limelight? We focus exclusively on moving content with inside the firewall. So those guys do not go there. They go to the edge, and then we pick up content from the edge. We move it for one of the largest accounting firms in the world, all of their accounting policies in PDF format. IT has traditionally put the kibosh on anything over 10 megs from a network standpoint, so we allow that to happen because the file only streams in one time. Traditional ways of doing that over and over, if you have 100 people in a branch office, 100 times that file comes in. We only send it in once because we've dropped a client on every desktop or laptop or mobile device that is done seamlessly through IT, usually in the middle of the night. It's like a Java or a Flash install, and that client then has the intelligence to move and route the file from one machine or one user to another. So let's talk about video. We've got some of the largest companies in the world using video content delivery from Contiki. What do they use it for? CEOs, top-down communication. Nestle, United Technologies, that airline you mentioned earlier, well, they need communication today, particularly as they go through a bankruptcy proceeding. We're the ones powering that CEO communicating to all their employees, whether they're at the office or at home. And many of those people do work from home, as you can imagine. So what we do is we think we bring together a concept that's been around for quite a while, the Unified Communications Platform. We consider ourselves to be the third leg on the stool. We take care of buffering. We take care of latency, as the video in the background is alluding to. You never have to worry about Contiki not giving you high-quality video content delivery around the world. So the third leg on that stool, messaging's been around, been there and done that. Voice has been around, been there and done that. Video is in the adoption phase right now. We've got a number of global companies, as I referenced earlier, besides live events. They use it for training. They use it for onboarding of new hires. NCR delivers video to 12,000 field service people on a regular basis so they can troubleshoot ATM and kiosk machines. It's much easier than looking it up in a 400-page manual. So when you think about the applications, they're pervasive. Everybody needs to communicate better within organizations. As consumers, we've been conditioned by YouTube and Hula and Netflix, and that concept is now moving inside the enterprise, and we're the guys that are delivering it on a daily basis to some of the largest companies in the world.
Okay, well done in 3-minute time zone. We haven't heard the buzzer at all today.
No, I'm kind of disappointed. I was looking forward to that.
I'm hoping I cut some people off. We didn't get to do that. All right, let's turn over to our judges. Contiki, who wants to go first? I'll give you. Art looks like he's chomping at the bit to say something, so go ahead.
You know, I'm always chomping at the bit to say something. I think it's a cool product. I have a feeling that it's the sort of thing, as I sit as an enterprise, that I want to get from Riverbed or Cisco or
typical WAN acceleration.
Well, right. Solution. So, right. I mean, they're doing acceleration between data centers and out to other places. Mm-hmm. So I feel like I want to get this as a service from one of those guys. I get that they're not doing it right now. Mm-hmm. So I think that as a startup, that's not a bad place to be.
Exactly, right.
And they're about 10 to 15 times more expensive than we are as a hardware offering versus software only.
Well, when they buy you, that won't be the case anymore. That's a nice presentation, Ada.
Thank you. Yeah, all right, score of 8. Okay, Boonzi.
I liked your presentation, so I'm going to give you a 9.
A 9.
Thank you.
Okay, and Charlie.
I liked your presentation. I think you're a practical solution to a problem, but I think the problem you solve is smaller than some of the antecedents that solve larger problems.
Okay, a 6. So we got a 6, a 9, and an 8. That's not bad. Okay. Well, judges, I want to thank you very much for your time. Again, we had Art Whitman here. He's the Director of Information Research, Boonzi Dickinson, and Charlie Babcock. Thanks very much, judges, for your time today. And thank you. We're going to let you go so that we can get on to one of the fun parts of the show. And this is where we go ahead and give away some cool prizes to members of our online audience.
Yes.
Right?
So our first prize is this lovely Amazon Kindle Fire. Thank you.
Got the names right there.
And our winner, and I hope I don't butcher this name too much, is Christopher Dismuke. Christopher Dismuke wins an Amazon Kindle Fire.
Okay, and so Christopher, we have your contact information, and we will get in touch with you and let you know how it is we're going to get this into your hands, but you are now the proud owner of the Kindle Fire. And by the way, if you are interested in registering for a future Valley View and hoping to win one of these prizes, you have to register online before the show takes place. If you go to www.informationweek.com/ValleyViewRegister, you will find a registration form. You may see some data there from today's show. Don't worry about it. Just go ahead and register anyway, and we'll make sure that we get you signed up for the next show. Well, you're handing me the prize. And this is a black box. This also says Amazon on it. It's a little bit different than that one.
That's the new Amazon Fire HD.
Okay.
Kindle Fire HD.
You got me going there. I had a feeling we were going to go to the HD route. So this is the HD, slightly different. We're going to hold these two up next to each other. The dimensions are a little bit different. I'll take this out of the box here. So dimensions of the tablet are a little bit different. This is the newer of the two.
And you've got your thumbprint on.
I got my thumbprint on that one. This one doesn't have. Here, I'll put a thumbprint on that one.
There we go. And the person who wins not only the Kindle Fire HD but also David's thumbprint is Vivian Traharn.
Vivian, so we will get in touch with you and we'll figure out how to get this to you as soon as possible. So before you go out and buy yourself a tablet, check this one out first and use it. Okay. Last but not least.
Last but not least, that is an Asus Google Nexus 7 tablet.
Enough brand names in there. Do you think they could simplify that
Let's
just a
call
little
it
bit?
the Nexus 7. It's an Android tablet.
It's an Android tablet now. You have one of these, right?
I do.
And I have one. What do you think of it?
I love it. It's running Jelly Bean, the newest version of the Google operating system, Android, and I think it's, all of these are just the right size. I would like to see a few more apps on there that I use on my iPad, but for traveling around and consuming content, really great device.
I have an iPad as well. I also have one of the Nexus 7 tablets. We happened to pick them up at Google I/O earlier this year, and I've actually become a really big fan of this. Not necessarily because of the size, but because I'm starting to integrate all of my Google, Gmail, all of that across different devices in a way that it's easier to do on an Android-based device than it is on some of the other ones.
So you're all googly there. So
I'm all googly, that's right. I went swimming with my iPhone, so I
don't think you could go swimming with this.
No, I'm not going to go swimming with this.
You could try. The winner of the Nexus 7 is Tom Hewson.
Okay.
So Tom, we'll get that out to you as well.
Great. So that's it for this edition of Information Week's Valley View. Next time we'll be coming back. We'll be on October 24th, and we have some pretty hot guests.
We do. We have a whole new slate of elevator pitch guests, and we are also going to be seeing an interview with John Chambers, the CEO of Cisco.
That's a big get.
Yeah, and we are also going to have Mark Hurd, who is the president of Oracle. Next week is Oracle Open World, and there will be a lot of great news coming out of that. So we'll have a little chat with Mark and kind of talk about a lot of the things we talked about with NetSuite as well.
Okay, well, that again is on October 24th. It'll be starting at the same time, 11 o'clock, and until then, we'll see you. Thanks for joining us.